so warm. Can you know what I feel? Well, it's the way you move your hands, and it's the way you understand. And there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, and there's a reason that I want to know. Hey, and there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, there's a reason that can you throw away everything you live for? It's the way you shake and sway, and it's the passion that you play. And there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, there's a reason that I want to know. Hey, there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, there's a reason that too many lost. They said a chain passed down through the years, but ending here if we just face the pain and the pain. Did you love before? Did they love before you? It's the way you move your hands. It's the way you understand. And there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, and there's a reason that I want to know. Hey, and there's a reason that I'm asking. Hey, and there's a reason that la 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 la
All right, welcome back, and I want to welcome especially some of the people who, of course, you've been following the Hard News Network. I have a new article up with the Hard News Network that you could probably see in a second. Here it is. There's for some reason, they don't render well on it, especially images, so the actual cover image isn't really working for whatever reason. This is like the third time in a row that that's happened, so I guess we'll just have to deal with it. And I am considering whether, if you guys want to do maybe some Skype calls or something, I'd be down for that. If people want to call in, talk a little bit about the topic. I've been kind of consuming a lot of the Russia Gate aftermath for the past week or so, and for some reason it hasn't gotten old for me, but for some people they've already moved on, which is pretty understandable given that for the past couple years we've been basically fed this load of crap that hasn't led anywhere. So, it's just, I mean, how much is enough? I think the rest of you probably can sympathize with that. But the fact of the matter is that there's people who have to be held accountable for it. And I don't know what it's going to take in order for these people to get fired, but people have to continue to put pressure on the accountable organizations, the media groups, the corporate people, also Hollywood. We don't have anything that we can use to accomplish this other than our efforts here. For example, on YouTube, I do some blogging, but there's ways to basically pressure them. And I think the best pressure that they've gotten is that the ratings of some of these shows have gone down. Geislinger is saying, you didn't cough once through the whole song. Well, I put my microphone off. So I actually didn't cough very much at all, but yeah, that's not by accident. So Forgot Millennial wants to, definitely talk to me tomorrow night. I am actually hosting somebody else for a stream from Brazil who's going to be talking a little bit more about politics over there. But definitely hit me up. May have a stream later this week with somebody from Canada. Not Jim So Podcast, although maybe he'll join sometime as well. But definitely been continuing to work and stuff. I think that this whole Russiagate fiasco has been a tremendous waste of time. And if you go through this article, I do focus a little bit more on certain issues rather than on the whole thing. If you want to have like a good book, let me see if it's even here. I think I might have it. Spygate by Dan Mangino. So this is a pretty good book for reference for some of the nonsense with Joseph Mifsud or whatever. Geislinger was saying, no, I don't. I've actually thought about. I'm not good at singing, so I'm kind of. I used to play a little guitar. It wasn't even that good, so every time I tried to sync my singing with guitar, it would just come out completely wrong. Who else do we have here? Nelson's TAS and Game Archive. First time seeing. Well, yeah, I don't think if you're joining from the Hard News Network, I don't think he really features you on screen if you're on his show. Except that I think Forgotten has been on screen a couple times. So, and I've been on his stream and he's been on mine, vice versa. Glad. I don't know why he doesn't do Sundays. So anyway. The real issue that I bring up here is that what you'll hear them say over and over again is the number of indictments and the amount of assets that have been seized and all of these other issues that they claim justify this tremendous waste of time and effort in order to pursue these people that they consider to be basically traitors. Even though if you really think about it, Paul Manafort busted for tax evasion, busted for a number of other white-collar crimes. I think money laundering might have been one of them. And then there's other people who were indicted. And, Rick Gates, for example, who was basically a lackey of Paul Manafort, also not really related to anything that had to do with the campaign. It's all nonsense. Who cares? Paul Manafort's in prison. I guess if you're really, a sadistic person, and you think, well, it doesn't matter whether Trump is guilty. What matters is that somebody associated with Trump has to suffer for this. That really shows that this isn't about national security. It isn't about the rule of law. It isn't about, the integrity of our democracy, as these people say. What it really is about is preserving their preferred order of the world, their hierarchy and the way they want politics to work. And that's all they care about. And if they can inflict pain in order to accomplish that, so much the better. And one person who was actually convicted, if you can call it that, was not even a U.S. national. It was a Dutch guy, Alex van der Zwaan. And he was sentenced to 30 days in jail and a $20,000 fine. Okay, that's not as bad as Manafort. But all he did was lie about his contact with Manafort's second-hand man, Rick Gates. That was it. That was the only thing. And he basically lost 30 days jail. Not the worst thing in the world, but it's a month of a person's life. This is a pretty young guy. And his life is ruined. His practice as an attorney is not very good. We also have Eric from AJ Goodman's stream. By the way, AJ, I kept sending him information about the John Mattis situation, and he never got back to me. So I'm not really interested in his stuff at the moment. It's kind of been a couple years, and he keeps talking about indictments, and I just don't have any patience anymore for it. But I do know about Eric. What else? So, Alex van der Zwaan put in jail for 30 days. That's the type of criminality that you're talking about, lying to the FBI. That was the same thing that Michael Flynn was indicted for. And I believe eventually Michael Flynn will, I think that sentence will be vacated. And eventually, I don't even think Trump will have to give him a pardon. I think the judges will review the circumstances and say, well, in reality, there was no underlying crime that would necessitate prosecuting him for lying to the FBI. That's what I hope would happen. If that doesn't happen, then Trump might have to pardon him. And if Trump doesn't pardon him, then really we're talking about the president actually being handcuffed by the so-called national security establishment that supposedly is going to keep our nation safe. So I will put out, if you want, I don't often turn this on, but I have a Skype number, and I think I'll put it in the chat if you guys want to call in, give some of your thoughts. Let me just, here's my headphones. So if you want to call in by Skype, you're welcome to. I haven't done this yet, but who gives a shit? Might as well let people chime in and tell me what they think. So the number is out there if you want. And once the show is over, I guess I'll just exit Skype or turn it off. I have to figure out how. Because I see other people, they have Skype accounts and they just get random calls. In any case, let's hear this. Okay, so it became so crazy back in 2017 that Placeboing actually made a song about it.
Trump, Putin, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, collusion. Trump, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Russian hacked our election.
Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible.
All right, we got our first call. Hello, you're on Bold Like a Leopard. Who is it? Hello?
Oh, hey, you actually picked up. It's Nelson. Hey.
Hey, Nelson.
I was just going to say, hey, keep streaming, man. I always love seeing other people from the audience and the show stream. I'd be streaming myself, but they smacked me with some copyright claims because of some music I was playing in the background, and I can't even stream anymore.
Yeah, the same issue happened. It wasn't even for a stream. It was for me. It happened. I did a movie review of Chappaquiddick, and it showed like maybe 10, 15 seconds of footage, and they slapped me with a 3-month streaming suspension, even though it wasn't a stream. I think it was just an upload.
Yeah, it's fucking bullshit. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to say. Just glad that you picked up.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
Keep up the good
joining.
streams, man.
Yeah. All right, back to the order of business. So that was Nelson.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Prove collusion. Prove collusion.
Was there collusion?
Absolutely.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion. 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 Trump, Russia, potential collusion. Trump, Russia, potential collusion.
And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin and the Kremlin and be in collusion and Putin and the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin and the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin and the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin and the Kremlin and be in collusion.
All 17 intelligence agencies.
17 agencies.
17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed.
17 different United States intelligence agencies. All 17 of them.
Yeah, it was pretty irritating seeing Maxine Waters and Anna Navarro on screen together. So, now this article is not comprehensive. It doesn't really bring in literally the entire sequence of events or all of the horrible people who were involved in the huge Russia collusion speculation nonsense. Some of the real big people who made complete and utter fools out of themselves. I guess I left out just because how much time do I honestly have? You could really write kind of reams and reams of paper. You could probably like several volumes of books on the idiocy that went into the past 2 years concerning Trump-Russia collusion. But I don't have that much time yet. So I kind of picked on Virginia Heffernan. And it's just, I mean, come on. So she is hopeless. This is a woman who is completely out of her mind. She was out of her mind before this whole collusion nonsense happened, because she actually wrote an article back in 2016 that was called she wrote a couple articles that were like literally retarded. So this one is called Hillary and Monica. I'm going to have to go back, but she wrote trying to excuse this was in May 2016. So forget all this crap with Putin and all the stuff about, peeing on the beds and whatever. So she's trying to rationalize as a feminist why, people have to get along, even people who believe that Monica Lewinsky was victimized by Bill Clinton, that in reality, if you're a feminist, there exists this cosmic alternate dimension where both Hillary and Monica are kind of like, they coexist in friendship. It's kind of like the lesbian seagull song from Beavis and Butthead. So this is not me. She highlighted this. I am not kidding. She said, were Monica or Hillary to look in on the secret boards, which she's talking about the Hillary Clinton fan boards during the 2016 elections, I know they'd find an extraordinary world, a network in which they can tell and hear their own stories, share an experience, strengthen hope, ungaslight the female experience, and joke about the daftness of American and Trumpian misogyny as it still keeps trying to elbow its way on to the podium. Alas, at our own network of Augusta National Facebook courses, we can't admit non-feminists at this time. So that's kind of a snide remark. But the fact is that they were trying to say that, look, there's no time for this Monica Lewinsky being a victim stuff. It's all about Hillary. It's all Monica Lewinsky's life had to basically be, completely dominated by this story of basically blowing her husband blowing Hillary Clinton's husband, so that Hillary Clinton's career may eventually succeed 20 years later. And it's ironic. I think I think that actually it had passed almost exactly 20 years since, you know, Bill and Monica had basically been banging in the White House. That was essentially the elapsed time between those two events. We have Lennon McCarthy back. What's up, dude? How's it going? How's your Sunday, buddy? I was actually watching some college basketball today, so don't think that I was spending the entire day, you know, just writing articles. I went up to, you know, this is important. You guys have to probably relate to this, I hope. I drove out to the next county to meet like a couple people, work people, and we watched the Duke game at a bar. And, you know, it was a welcome relief. I just got away from the phone and more of this crap for about 2 hours or whatever. And then I got back to this. So anyway, what else did she write? So the funniest thing is that she wrote on November 15th, 2016, a blog. Let me see. I don't even know if I even linked it, but here we go. So she wrote this article. Hillary Clinton is more than a president. She is an idea, a world historical heroine. Light itself. I mean, what do you guys think? The two Larrys can answer if they want. It says, and I'm not alone in my commitment. Millions of Clinton's supporters. We were thanked by Clinton as the, quote, secret privates Facebook sites express it among themselves all the time in raptures or happy tears with each new display of our heroine's ferocious intelligence, depth, and courage. It should be heroine without an E in her case. We were frankly, because she kills people, we were frankly bewildered by the idea that anyone would hedge their commitment to her. You don't have to be her friend. Yes, she's made mistakes, lesser of two evils. We didn't remember anyone turning to this stock ambivalence when discussing Obama, Babe Ruth, or FDR. If only one reporter they knew about us could have published a headline like, Clinton inspires historic levels of adoration from her supporters, about the people who have had their lives transformed by the power of her campaign, unrivaled effectiveness, and extraordinary career. Just one headline like that, like the ones Bill Clinton got. So these are people jealous of Bill Clinton. You know, the problem with that I have is that as much as I think that Bill Clinton was a horrible person, he was also a pretty smart dude. And he knew how to get the votes, and he knew how to relate to people and how to talk to people. Nowadays, he's just a freak. So, you know, I guess, holy crap, I forgot to submit this on Walkaway. By the way, if you guys, do you guys use Reddit? Because I do post on it, just so you know. I post on the Walkaway forum. I was actually kicked off of the Donald forum for trying to get, I remember, if you guys know who Alicia Clegg is, Alicia Clegg, I wrote a post asking people to help get her unbanned from YouTube. And then I got banned from the Reddit Donald's subreddit. I was, by the way, that really sucks because you get a lot of exposure there. So Lennon McCarthy asks a question, which I think is an excellent question. And by the way, let me see. You guys can still call the Skype number. But he says, who are the Russia graders in the biggest denial? I'm thinking Schiff and Maddow. Yeah, I think. Well, this article. So Virginia Heffernan is really, she has a cognitive disorder. That's why I featured her. Because when you look at her, the way she behaved during the election and while coping with it, it's just the way. I mean, she's completely divorced from reality. And why is she relevant now? Well, first let me get through this. don't call yet, guys, but she compared Hillary Clinton in her post-election article to Babe Ruth and FDR. She also later said this: "I want to reverse the usual schedule of things then. We don't have to wait until she dies to act. Hillary Clinton's name belongs on ships and airports and tattoos. She deserves straight-up hagiographies in a sold-out Broadway show called Rodham. Yes, this cultural canonization is going to come after the chronic, constant, nonstop, on the other hand, sexist hedging around her legacy. But such is the courage of Hillary Clinton and her supporters. We reverse patriarchal orders. Maybe she is more than a president. Maybe she's Maybelline. That was me. Maybe she is an idea, a world historical heroine, light itself. The presidency is too small for her. She belongs to a much more elite class of Americans, the more than presidents. Neil Armstrong, Martin Luther King Jr., Alexander fucking Hamilton." TM Ryder is that, and that's my Skype number, so you can call my Skype number if you want to get through. Nick's asking, what is a hagiography? A hagiography is like when you write something that's in praise of someone else. Okay, I guess it comes from some sort of Greek word. So, why is she relevant? Well, I guess the LA Times on what would it be? Friday. They let her write this article. They let this woman who said that Hillary Clinton is light itself. They let her write an article saying, "Forget what William Barr wrote about collusion. Listen to Adam Schiff instead." Are you out of your minds? Zatoichi is asking, am I live right now? Yes, I am. I'm live right now. And you can call me at this number. So she goes and she says, 12 years ago, Representative Adam B. Schiff, Democrat of Burbank, called on then-President George Bush to recognize the 1915 Armenian genocide. He asked that the history of the Ottoman government's extermination of 1.5 million Armenians be written into the record so future administrations making foreign policy would take that genocide into account. Schiff's resolution passed in committee, but after powerful American politicians of both parties enabled a lobbying blitz by the Turkish government, Schiff's resolution never made it to the House floor. When you think about what I like what you're saying, Lennon. Hillary's biography equals hagiography. What is Ryu talking about there? When you think about what we have against us, the president, a foreign policy establishment that has condoned this campaign of denial. Schiff said at the time, against that you have the truth, which is a powerful thing, but doesn't always win out. Schiff, now chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, is faced with another campaign of denial. This time, what's being denied is not the past, but the present. President Trump and his huffy apparatchiks in Congress and the media insist on trying to skirt what's self-evident, the facts of Trump world's commitments to the Kremlin. There have emerged in public testimony through Michael Cohen in emails in the public record, Don Jr.'s. So Michael Cohen never actually, this is important. Michael Cohen, so she gets a huge detail wrong. He never actually agreed that Trump was under influence of the Kremlin. He never said that he had any evidence. He never said anything to the extent that Donald Trump is controlled by the Kremlin. Okay, nothing like that. He never said he was witness to anything like that. He just said, I think he said something about he's capable of it. Stormy Daniels is here, and she could probably attest that she knows a little bit more about Michael Cohen than the Kremlin does. Because persisting in denial means censoring anyone who tells the truth. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee have been calling on Schiff to resign. Because he's the one who tells the truth, sure. Denial lane in Egypt. all week they waived Attorney General William Barr's meager and fuzzy 4-page letter claiming it faithfully represents Mueller's findings, which Barr says runs some 400 pages. Of course, we need to see the actual Mueller findings to see how faithful Barr's letter is. But legal analysts from Jed Sugarman, Fordham to Ken White, a former federal prosecutor to Neil Katyal, have questioned Barr's use of weasel words and his delay in turning over the whole report to Congress. I actually would rather them, rather they just let the report go. I think Ryu is saying something about like an Hungarian or something. No, this is this like Croatian or something? It looks like he's writing in Croatian. Pretty impressive, man. Of course, if you're actually just Croatian, I guess it's just whatever. But, you know, good for you otherwise. See here. So, anyway, she doesn't believe a word of what Attorney General Barr said. So on Thursday, Schiff, as he has done many times before, patiently spelled out the state of play between Trump world and the Russians. So then she goes into this whole litany of stuff about what he said at the committee. Now remember, Schiff himself agreed that Mueller's findings would be basically exactly what, you know, he actually said that he would respect the findings of the Mueller report. He's not doing that. And what he's instead doing is he's trying to shift Schiff is shifting, right? You guys like puns, right? So he's shifting the focus of it. So he actually said at the committee that it's no longer collusion, it's compromise. And at this point, people have to really, you know, question exactly what Adam Schiff is trying to accomplish. Look, you can't prosecute somebody from Congress. That's not Congress's job. That's not. By the way, Trey Gowdy spent much of his career trying to do that. He was a failure. I know some of you might actually like Trey Gowdy, but it's not the way it works. He says it's check. Very interesting. So, yeah, well, welcome to all the new people here. We have Babadi, Shiska. Shiska's return. I haven't seen Shiska for a while. Stormy Horseface. By the way, you can still call in on Skype. So Virginia Heffernan, this woman who wrote this delusional article praising Hillary Clinton after the 2016 election, she's the one chosen by the LA Times to write this synopsis of why you should not believe William Barr and do believe Adam Schiff. And I went into this. The fact is that William Barr, granted, I don't think that he's exactly a perfect person. He did serve under President Bush, but he's been confirmed 2 times by the Senate. Yet, actually he was confirmed technically 3 times because he was confirmed as Deputy Attorney General in 1990, then as Attorney General in 1991, then again as Attorney General this year. And yet people want instead to confirm, they want to go along with Adam Schiff, who's been a politician since 1996. So he's been a partisan actor since, actually since the Clinton era, although at that time he was in California. Shirley Rose is back from the Northeast Bronx. Yeah. Did the Yankees win today, by the way? I was watching some of that game. They were playing the Orioles. Nick's Radio is signing off. Thanks for tuning in. Anyway, let me see here. Is Lennon leaving? Damn it. Oh. Yeah, you guys are going through some sort of Latin seance there in the chat or something. So that looks like whatever they put in the Word documents. before you populate them. So anyway, yeah, you should read this article. I'm going to put it in the chat once again. If you guys want to still call in, the number, if you scroll up, you can see the Skype number, and you can just reach me directly. So essentially, what's Adam Schiff's experience with intelligence? Well, he was part of the prosecution of this guy. His name, he was an FBI agent named Richard Mueller back in the late 80s. But by then, he'd already been caught for, I think, almost 6 or 7 years. And he'd already been on trial. He was just joining them. We're here just slack-jawed, not much to say tonight. Okay, so you're saying you're not going to call in. Okay, don't call in, Larry. Don't call in. Don't make me force you. There's other Larrys out there. In any case, there was so Adam Schiff, his greatest experience as anything in the field of intelligence was prosecuting a spy that had already been caught and had basically, it was plain as day. The guy had received, I think $50,000 in gold bullion from this couple who were Russian moles in the U.S. And it was an open and shut case, and it was basically handed already on a silver platter, and he wasn't even the main prosecutor in the case. So that's Adam Schiff. That's the extent of his experience prosecuting spies, I guess. And then I go into these other people. There's David Korn. Here, let's listen to this.
What he's offering. He's not just offering information to Deripaska. He's offering information.
I don't know if you guys can hear this.
Information to Deripaska. You have to expect or assume it's going to go elsewhere. And if and starting in June 14th, 2016, is the day that the Washington Post reveals that the DNC has been hacked, and right away, the news reporting is that the Russians are behind it. So at that point in time, any point from that point on, if you're talking about giving information to the Russians, if you're meeting with the Russians, if you're reaching out to the Russians the way George Papadopoulos was, you are working with or agreeing to help people who there's at least strong evidence, if it's not conclusive yet, who are attacking our campaign, our election.
Right.
So it's not just giving information to a business associate of yours. It's giving information that can go right through to Russian intelligence and to the top of the
Well, just to finish up on your question, so all these people I mentioned, Manafort, Michael Flynn, who'd flown to Moscow in December 2015 on the Russian government's dime for the celebratory 10th anniversary of RT, ends up sitting next to Vladimir Putin at the dinner
and pocketing $45,000
and pocketing $45,000.
Think about what he's.
So they go through this nonsense about what's his name, about Michael Flynn again. You have to realize that Michael Flynn, this was something that was discussed. Like I know one of you guys in the chat, it might be Pinochet, who's not here today, but one of you has said, well, Dan Bongino is kind of full of shit or whatever. But there are certain things that he's revealed that I think have to be, just put into consideration. Okay, not just him, but he kind of condenses it in his show. So when Michael Flynn went to Moscow, he basically followed all of the protocol necessary for somebody involved in the intelligence, community to travel to Moscow on private business. He went. He had a pre-travel consultation. He went and had a debriefing afterwards. So the intelligence community knew full well what he was doing there before, during, and after he went there. There's literally nothing that they can complain about Michael Flynn doing. So that's really the problem with believing people like David Korn. David Korn was out there to basically create mountains out of molehills day in and day out on MSNBC and also on Mother Jones. And by the way, Mother Jones was at one point, it was, if you were a leftist, it was considered kind of an anti-establishment magazine. Now it's completely sold out and become part of the corporate left. So people who were, I guess, I don't want to call them good faith, but they were really more principled people of the left. They've seen some of these publications, basically stab themselves in the heart and become zombified. Mother Jones being one of them, Slate, Salon, Huffington Post. These were publications that during the Bush administration, of course, had been standard bearers of criticizing U.S. foreign policy. Instead, now you see them basically being, instruments of that foreign policy, of a more hawkish foreign policy with respect to Russia. So I went through him. I went through Ryan Grimm, of course. You all know, if you've been following the channel for a while, I actually wrote this story for Hard News last year, exposing his complicity in the John Mattis hoax. But there were other issues that he had, okay? So it's not just things that I talked about. He also wrote this story at the time, and I go through it in the article, where he talks about this potential deal that was, it wasn't even brokered. It was just discussed between Elliot Broidy, who was a member of the Republican National Committee, and some representatives of a Russian oil and gas giant in order to lobby for lifting the sanctions. Now, the fact is that if this would have gone through, there probably would have been some legal problems, okay? I'm not trying to tell you that it would have been a good thing that happened, but this is something very important that Grimm himself talks about in the article. Where was it? He said, one second. One hiccup came when Broidy sought legal advice about the plan. Elliot Burke, an attorney and managing partner at Burke Farah LLP, reviewed Broidy's proposal and flagged the avoidance of lobbying registration as a problem. Fieldcrest, which is the company owned by Broidy, offers a somewhat detailed roadmap, which in and of itself could be viewed as providing strategic advice to influence U.S. policy. Burke wrote to Broidy in February suggesting that he may have already run afoul of FARA, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The fee amounts and scope also would not support a claim that Fieldcrest's activities would be limited to non-FARA registrable administrative activities. Burke also noted that some of the characterizations of the plan could be construed to suggest that Fieldcrest is already engaged in registrable activity. Burke closed the letter, not the conclusion you were hoping for, I know, but happy to discuss more next week. So basically, Grimm found these documents that were implicating these people in something that never happened. It never happened. Okay, it's if it would have happened and Trump would have had, one of his, DNC, or sorry, one of the RNC people had tried to negotiate for lifting the sanctions. Yeah, I could see people having a problem with it. I certainly would say it's strange. And things like that are a problem when you have, corporations that lobby our government through political, political actors like him, like Broidy. And this, people talk about AIPAC all the time as well, right? AIPAC, I guess, I think AIPAC is certainly open to criticism. This would be the same idea, okay? Only with Russia instead of Israel. But let's read the next paragraph. Broidy consulted Burke Farah to ensure that his plan was legal, and the answer he received was a factor in the decision not to move forward with the agreement. According to his statement to The Intercept, as with any matter, I took early steps to ensure that any proposed agreement, if one had gone forward, was in compliance with all applicable laws, which is why I consulted with my attorneys. As I've consistently stated, though, I did not wish to be a lobbyist or FARA agent and would have declined any engagement requiring such steps. So, Burke did not respond to a request for comment from The Intercept. Brody has worked to funnel money into the U.S. political system for others. However, last month, the Associated Press reported that Brody received millions of dollars from George Nadar, a witness in special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, and a close confidant of Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed. AP reported that Brody received that money weeks before he made personal donations to the congressional campaigns in an effort to shape a bill critical of Qatar, which the United Arab Emirates is currently blockading. The New York Times also reported that Brody was reimbursed by Nadar, and after he funded an October conference that was highly critical of Qatar, which was confirmed by documents obtained by the Intercept. The UAE has contracts with a private security company Brody owns that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, according to the Times. Brody has blamed Qatar for the hack and disclosure of his emails. So, this is what's ironic here. Let's read that to the end. His attorney wrote a public letter to the Qatari ambassador to the U.S., blaming the Gulf nation for spreading false and stolen information about him and claiming that Brody had irrefutable forensic evidence tying Qatar to this unlawful act. Brody has since filed a lawsuit seeking damages from the Qatari government. The Qatari embassy did not respond to the Intercept's request for comment. The documents were provided to the Intercept anonymously. So these documents, which he alleges were hacked and stolen, okay, maybe Qatar did leak them. Okay, and who is the Intercept partnered with? Qatar. Qatar and kind of Iran or whatever. So, yeah, this is the real problem here. Okay, I think that, the Intercept is not nearly as bad as other publications. You have, of course, Glenn Greenwald is a huge. He's kind of pushed back against most of the Russia hysteria over the past few years, but in this respect, in the respect of hiring Ryan Grim to begin with, given his horrible lying with regard to the John Mattis situation and, Huffington Post and TYT, which I, again, urge you guys to go back and read. I think I linked it in the article. And you can here's the article again in the comments. Qatar hero. Exactly. In any case, yeah, the Ryan Grim was a huge violator in my opinion. Now that's because I'm biased. That's because I dealt with him. I dealt with his work personally. I've never actually spoken to him. He actually tweeted me back once because I insulted his shirt. And then of course there's MSNBC. Let's watch this.
When you put the head of the FBI and the CIA and the NSA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Director of National Intelligence all in a row, all at the same table, it will inevitably make news. Yesterday, the biggest headline out of the big intelligence hearing in the Senate was probably this. U.S. intelligence chiefs contradict Trump on North Korea, ISIS, and Iran. They could have gone on as well. That's a big deal. But there was another big piece of news that came out of that meeting of the minds yesterday that is worth paying attention to, and that isn't necessarily about a split between the White House and the intelligence chiefs. It's just about our country in a very blunt way. Before that hearing in the Senate yesterday, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, put out this report. It's 42 pages long. It's the U.S. intelligence community's worldwide threat assessment. And I just want to direct your attention to the real doozy that starts on the bottom of page 5. Quote, China has the ability to launch cyber attacks that cause localized, temporary disruptive effects on American critical infrastructure, such as disruption of a natural gas pipeline for days to weeks in the United States. And it's not just China. Go to page 6. Quote, Russia has the ability to execute cyber attacks in the United States that generate localized, temporary disruptive effects on critical infrastructure, such as disrupting an electrical distribution network for at least a few hours. So China could shut off the natural gas pipelines. Russia can just shut off the electricity. They have that ability now. There have been rumblings for a while that hostile foreign government hackers had burrowed their way into American critical infrastructure and particularly the power networks. The Wall Street Journal has done the best reporting on this front in the country, laying out exactly how that scenario could play out here, how foreign countries have been laying.
All right, what she's referring to is the Vermont power. So this was this was actually debunked like 2 years ago, and even Snopes said this. So it says a computer infected by malware proved a Vermont power company has been targeted for disruption by Russian hackers, and this says mostly false. Malware was found on a laptop belonging to an organization responsible for maintaining a Vermont power grid, was reportedly similar or identical to that used by Russian hackers, was false. The infected laptop was not connected to the power grid, and no evidence documents that the malware was placed on the laptop by Russian hackers and or by persons with the intent of disrupting a U.S. power grid. So I don't really trust Snopes that much, but it's like if they say that the Washington Post was lying about that, then it's pretty stinky.
The groundwork to one day flip the off switch on an entire swath of the U.S. power grid if they want to. But this new report from the intelligence chiefs rings a whole new kind of alarm bell. This is no longer just a thing that they might be planning for, that could conceivably happen one day. This is the Director of National Intelligence telling us all in unclassified form, in black and white, China and Russia can do this today, now, whenever they want to. In other words, we're relying on their good graces that they're not. And it is like negative 50 degrees in the Dakotas right now. What would happen if Russia killed the power in Fargo today? Right? What would happen if all the natural gas lines that service Sioux Falls just poofed on the coldest day in recent memory? And it wasn't.
So she's basically just fear-mongering off of a cold snap. By the way, it's been snowing like crazy here. So those of you, it's still April. I mean, it's April and there's still snow on the ground, although I think it technically stopped snowing yesterday, which was March. But, you know, they're like, well, it's going to be so cold and Russia's going to, you know, hack the power network and turn everything off. Well, I mean, I guess that would accomplish the Green New Deal with a lot less cost.
In our power, whether or not to turn them back on. I mean, what would you do if you lost heat indefinitely as the act of a foreign power on the same day the temperature in your front yard matched the temperature in Antarctica? I mean, what would you and your family do? Joining us now is Rebecca Smith. She's an energy reporter for the Wall Street Journal. She's been reporting on the vulnerability of our power grid to foreign hackers in painstaking detail. Ms. Smith, thank you very much for being here. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure.
Let me ask you if you feel like this.
All right, somebody tried to call me, but it didn't come through, I guess. So you can call me back, 443. Let me know if you.
This essential
Let me know if whoever that was
from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence is congruent with the kind of reporting that you've been doing at the Journal and the kind of thing that you've been able to sort of raise the alarm about from the journalistic side.
I think it's absolutely confirmatory, Rachel. And one of the things I found very interesting about this year's threat assessment was no longer is the federal government describing these things as a hypothetical. I mean, in the past, the government has said that the threat of U.S. retaliation would keep our foes in check. This year, you know, they've dropped that. Now they're saying the Russians and the Chinese are in our networks, and they can shut things down if they wish to. That's really a dramatic turnabout, and I think it shows that this is really a matter of utmost national security.
We have focused on the conflict that our country has with Russia and with the Russian attack on the election and all of the other strange dynamics between our country and Russia in the era of the Trump presidency ever since the 2016 campaign. The idea of China as a foreign actor that might not only have an interest in doing this, but have the capability to do it right now is something that I think is going to be less familiar to a lot of Americans. Are the Chinese and the Russians essentially on par in terms of their capability here?
I don't know about their capability. I mean, to some extent, the best information is going to be in classified circles. And in the past, we've thought...
So this is like retarded levels of speculation. Okay, now I have on this channel criticized, of course, the U.S. ignoring some strategic threats from China. I will say, though, sometimes you do see people completely just exaggerate everything about China. Like there's things about China that I think are, they scare the shit out of me. But this idea that they have the capability of shutting down our power grid, well, there's been talk about this for a very, very long time. It's just the media chose to ignore it, and now they're trying to overhype it. There has to be a middle ground, and I get it that the news industry doesn't work according to the actual needs of the people. But Larry, you can't hear it? 1 second. Yes, I'm in Ohio. Yeah, Larry, I don't know. I mean, I put the volume higher. I mean, not much else I can do. Let me see. The desktop audio is at the max.
That the Chinese were primarily focused on exfiltrating information that they could commercialize, whereas the Russians were taking an approach that was more along the lines of traditional defense. One of the other things that was interesting that Dan Coates said yesterday is that Moscow and Beijing are working together more closely now than they have in decades. So regardless of what each country's capability is, it appears that they might work together to do us harm.
When the Director of National Intelligence decides to do this in a non-classified document, decides to put this out in a public sense, I mean, that was one of the surprises this week. One of the things that was interesting to see from the intelligence community that this worldwide threat assessment was put out as a non-classified document published online, and we could all read it. As far as we know, there isn't. Certainly there's classified material that goes along with this sort of thing, but I don't think there's a classified annex or a classified version of this report that lawmakers are getting that we're not. I wonder if that effectively is itself a form of defense, by trying to raise the public alarm about this, to try to heighten concern about this among the general American public and lawmakers, if this might be some sort of signal from the intelligence community that we ought to do more to either prepare for this or to try to head it off?
I think this is a very subtle signaling on the part of the intelligence agencies that they want there to be more attention. Now, it's possible that there is some disagreement within the federal agencies about how much the government should divulge. I worked on a project with a story that was published earlier this month with my colleague Rob Berry, and we tried in what wound up being painstaking detail to reconstruct a Russian cyber attack. And we showed how they started out attacking small suppliers and vendors and worked their way up the chain until they reached utilities. Now, the government has never revealed the identities of the utilities that were hacked. They keep all that information private. But I think there may be, we may be starting to see a crack in that, where there are some parts of the government that want more information to come out. I mean, there's a general feeling that government only reacts when there's a crisis. And I think there's some people in high-level positions in government who want us to do more now before there is a crisis.
All right, or at least trying to create a sense of crisis or worry about a potential crisis that can generate some political momentum here. Rebecca Smith, Wall Street Journal energy reporter. You do phenomenal work. Thank you for what you do at the Journal. Keep going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Yeah, Lennon McCarthy was like first and second place in the Herman Munster look-alike contest. Yeah, they do look alike. It's like, I think Rachel Maddow finds her guests at the same quilting bee. It's like, come on. You know, and this, the thing is that she said, well, a lot of the real information that is part of what we're talking about is closed to classified circles. Okay, then what are you talking about? You're basically revealing to us only what the media has been has been fed by intelligence agencies and people who want you to know a certain amount of stuff rather than what actually is happening, okay? Now, I think that we do have a lot to fear concerning what China, how China could, of course, hack a lot of our corporate secrets, things like that, try to basically create China's main focus right now, okay, if people really want to think about it, is creating this Belt and Road idea of expanding their trade routes throughout the rest of Asia and Africa, and maybe even to Europe, and creating this alternate economic center, which is China centered. Okay, that's the way it is. That's their real interest. Okay, is it a threat to the United States? Well, economically, it's kind of a threat. In terms of strategic importance, it would reduce the United States. Some people would say that's a good thing. I would say that we can do whatever we can in order to make our country more competitive and more of a place to do business for other countries. That's the best that we can do. We can't just go and say to people, well, China is trying to hack our electricity system, our power grid. China's evil. China's a horrible country. That's what people want us to constantly say, because that shows that we don't have the innovation and flexibility to compete with China. And that's really the name of the game here. I think, unfortunately, we have to live with the fact that the majority of the people in this country, if there was to be a war with a country that could actually be a real adversary of ours, like Russia or China, people would be surprised how unprepared they would be for the damage that could be caused. So we're trying not to get into these wars. And that includes both Russia and China. There's certainly a lot of areas where I criticize China in this show, especially their the choice of their friends in Latin America and Africa, which, by the way, I criticize America's choice of friends and regimes to support in Latin America and throughout the world. I don't really think that I'm being inconsistent in saying that, the more we enable countries to be destructive and hurt their own citizens, the worse it ends up being when a lot of those people end up trying to come here. Okay? I think I try to be fair. I don't always succeed, and all of us have our own biases. But when you guys watch my show, I hope you're not seeing somebody who is basically trying to rail and rant and get us into wars with other countries. That would be the worst thing, because you see enough of that on your TVs. So Larry says bingo. I don't know bingo about what. Angrily scissoring. Actually, yeah, that's the comment of the evening, man. Is that Oichi? Mad Dodge is here. Sorry, but you're actually pretty late. I think I'm going to shut it down. But for some reason, he always arrives pretty late. And when I'm ready to close down. But glad to have him. Actually, a couple of the Mad Dodge people are here. MC was here earlier. I think I saw memes sometime earlier. Or maybe that was a previous thing. Yeah, so that's about it. Russiagate is going to keep... I think it's going to keep burning within a sector of the media, and you can, hold on and hold tight, because it's going to get even wilder once the actual report comes out and you see some real conspiracy theories. This was in my article. I'm just putting it out there again. Please like it and share it. Like this video, share the video, share the stream. Also subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. And subscribe to me on Gab at Starscream85, on Minds.com. Minds.com at Chef Leopard. I also have Subscribestar. Forgot about Subscribestar. So I'm going to put this in the chat. So yeah, send me some cash, guys, because, why the fuck not? I mean, do I have to give you a reason? Do I have to make, what sort of justification? I mean, your contribution helps add to that. That's all that I can say. That's my pitch. You will see gaps filled into this bookshelf like you wouldn't fucking believe. That's what you get by contributing to Subscribestar. I just buy a fuckload of books and possibly go to see a pulmonologist. So that's about it. Again, once again, please like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to me on Gab at Starscream85, at Chef Leopard on Minds, as well as Twitter if you're still into that crap. And also Chef Leopard on Subscribestar. And thanks a lot. I'll just read your names. You have Chris, Stormy, Larry, Lennon, Uncle Bobbity, Zatoichi, MC, MC still here, Mad Dodge, Larry Gerke, Lennon McCarthy, who else? Did I get everybody? There was Larry Geislinger was here earlier. And Ryu, of course. I think I got everybody. Yeah, have a great night. And Shirley Rose Lee. So I'll play the song out again. We can talk a little in the chat. And have a great night.
Can you be so warm? Can you know what I feel? Well, it's the way you move.